波坡摸佛得特呢了个科呵鸡七西子次思之吃是日一乌。Okay, if it wasn't obvious there, these are the Mandarin initials, the initials in Mandarin Chinese. And just really quickly kind of talk through some of these. Bo, po, mo, fo. Typically we end these initials with an o sound when we're just talking about the initials. That would be written as an o in Chinese, in pinyin. Those that would be written with an e ending. We just append that sound just so we can pronounce something rather than just doing a p, p. Doesn't really make anything, or a t, t, you know. And g, k, h, also we append that with an e sound, which is in Chinese. All of these sounds are very similar to what they are in English, so there's really not much point in going over them in too much detail. I suppose technically the B and the D are not voiced as they are in English, but it's such a subtlety that we probably don't even need to mention it. Also, the h is more of a glottal, has more of a, like you're about to spit at somebody, I suppose. Don't do that, but that's what the sound is. H. It's got a little bit of a glottal kind of friction going on in there. All of these ones, tend to be a little bit more tricky because the English sound that these letters make tends to be quite a bit different than the Chinese sound that we use for them. So, and G, the J is pretty much the exception, one of the exceptions there. But G, Qi, Xi, that would be with an I kind of appended to the end of them. That I in pinyin is pronounced E all the time. Ji, Qi, Xi, or at least with those initials, that is. But it's not always pronounced I, as we'll see in the next row. But Qi, the Q here is a pretty peculiar sound. Qi, Qi. It's kind of a cross between it's kind of like the G, but it has no voice to it, so it's not a vibration in the vocal cords going on there. It's more of an aspirated sound. Qi, qi. And then xi, xi, we can use that. We can kind of, it's almost like an SH, but a little bit more forward in the mouth. Xi, xi. And it's always going to be followed by a very forward vowel sound, like E. E is produced at the very front of the mouth, so it's always going to be followed like that. Even when it's like if it's followed by a U, it's always going to be an umlaut U. So it's always going to be xu rather than shu, which doesn't make any sense. Can't even say it in Chinese. Next row here is zi, ci, si. This is another kind of tricky one. It's also followed by an I. So here we have a difference. The top row is going to be pronounced E. The second row here is going to be pronounced Z, C, S, even though it's still spelled the same with an I. Z is kind of like a DZ. Z, Z, C is kind of like a TS. The C kind of sounds like a TS sound, like cats. Ts, C. And then S is just like an S. S. Last row here then, zhi, chi, shi, r. Again, we put an I after these sounds, and again the I sounds a little bit different. It almost sounds like there's an R at the end of it, almost like sure, I'll do that. Chi, shi, zhi, chi, shi, r. This R sound, just by itself, R-I, is one of the trickier sounds to make in Chinese. It kind of sounds like the sound that you get in measure, zh, zh, zh. It's a little different than that, maybe a little more J-ish, more R-ish, I don't know. But just kind of listen for that. It's got a little bit of friction going on there, but it's voiced, and it's kind of really far back in the throat, really far back in the mouth, with your tongue kind of arched, kind of doing this weird thing. So, zh, ch, sh, r. Okay, and that brings us to E, U, which are really not initials themselves, but are just placeholder initials for the sounds E and U. So whenever you have those vowel sounds coming in the spot, the first spot, basically in the word, then we use the Y and the W instead of the vowels, the I and the U. So if we were going to say E, it's just Y-I. If we were, that would be E. We wouldn't just say I, and we wouldn't say I. So they, just for convention's sake, they put a Y for that E sound whenever it occupies that first space in the word. So Y A might be ya, ya. So you have that ya, ya, and like the W then is the U sound. So that would be U is just W-U, U. But if we had this with a different ending, a different vowel or a different end entirely, we might have wo, 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 which is oo, wo. So W-O would be that. Or you could even have like wong. Wong is really oo, ang. But instead of spelling it U-A-N-G, we spell it W-A-N-G for wong. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Keep practicing those. Probably best to just practice the first part of these, the video here, where it's just me reading through them all really fast rather than listening over and over to these boring explanations. Yeah, practice those over and over again until you can say them whichever way you want. And we'll see you in class.